Welcome back, everybody. Today we're taking a deep dive into a really complex topic, and it's incredibly relevant,
Mm,
the outbound movement of Bangladeshi citizens.
yeah.
So we're talking about,
New topic.
yeah, millions of people who are seeking opportunities outside of their borders. And what's interesting is how this movement is shaping the entire nation's economy in some pretty
Interesting.
surprising ways.
Definitely.
Yeah. And the source material for this deep dive
Okay.
is a podcast script that explores this phenomenon.
Right.
And let me tell you, it's already got my mind buzzing.
Yeah, well, it's a multifaceted issue.
It really is.
We're going to be focusing on the two main drivers here,
Okay.
education and employment, and then, of course, how those are intertwined with the economic impact, particularly when it comes to remittances.
Remittances, yeah. Okay, so let's kind of set the scene here for our listener, talking about Bangladesh, a nation of over 170 million people.
Yep.
Since gaining independence in 1971, they've made huge strides in education. Like, they've seen a rise in literacy rates and increased enrollment across all levels of schooling.
Now, that's true.
But like with any
Yeah, as a
rapidly developing nation, there are
growing pains.
growing pains. Yeah.
Yeah, so, the education system is expanding, yes,
Right.
but it faces a lot of challenges in providing really consistent, high quality
Oh, yeah.
And a lot of things contribute to this. We're talking outdated curricula, huge class sizes, and just a shortage of qualified teachers.
Right. So all of those things.
It's like trying to build a skyscraper on a foundation that's just not quite sturdy enough.
That's a good analogy.
Yeah.
So for students who are really ambitious and they're aiming for a globally competitive edge, the appeal of studying abroad becomes clear.
Yeah, they feel they need to go somewhere else
Right.
to really kind of get the skills and knowledge they need to be successful in this world. And this isn't just a small number of students either. This is thousands of Bangladeshis choosing to study abroad each year.
Wow.
And they're heading primarily to places like the U.S., the U.K., Canada, Australia, and Malaysia.
Oh, wow.
In fact,
All over.
in 2022 alone, Bangladesh was one of the top countries sending students to international universities.
That's a huge statistic.
Yeah,
But I imagine this brings up the concern of brain drain.
you've hit a very important point.
Yeah.
While many students, you're right, they go abroad, they get their education, they come home with all these valuable skills
Yeah.
ready to contribute to Bangladesh's development. Others decide to settle abroad,
Right.
and that can create a talent gap back home, particularly in the specialized fields where expertise is already limited.
Yeah, it's that classic dilemma of, personal pursuit of opportunity possibly coming at the cost of the nation's growth.
Yeah.
Makes me wonder if there are ways to kind of bridge that gap,
Mm.
maybe through partnerships with international institutions that could bring that expertise to Bangladesh.
Yeah,
But we'll delve into that later.
definitely.
Let's shift our focus to the other main driver here, employment.
All right, so millions of Bangladeshi citizens are working abroad, primarily in the Middle East, Southeast Asia, and Europe. They're filling vital roles in a bunch of different sectors, but predominantly construction, domestic work, and other manual labor-intensive fields.
So not quite the glamorous expat life we see in the media.
No, not at all.
And this large-scale labor migration isn't just a matter of preference, right?
Well, Bangladesh, it's seen really impressive GDP growth over the past few years.
Right.
Job creation just hasn't quite kept pace with that booming population.
Wow.
So for a lot of people, seeking employment abroad isn't just a choice.
It's a necessity.
Yeah, a way to support their families, escape underemployment,
Right.
and just try to make a better future for themselves.
Yeah, it's a reminder that economic progress doesn't always equal opportunity for everyone.
Right.
And there's another layer to this whole thing, isn't there?
Oh, yeah.
The whole economic impact of these migrant workers sending money back home.
That's right. We're talking about remittances. And the numbers are crazy.
Okay.
In 2023 alone, Bangladeshi migrant workers sent over $22 billion back home.
That's more than a financial lifeline for these families. Like, that is
Well,
a force in the nation's economy.
It is. Remittances are actually one of the largest sources of foreign exchange for Bangladesh.
Wow.
And they play a huge role in stabilizing the currency and reducing trade deficits.
It's amazing.
On a smaller level, this money is funding education, healthcare.
Right.
It's fueling growth of small businesses across the country. It's literally changing lives.
It's like an invisible economic engine powered by the hard work and sacrifices of these people who are working so far away from home.
Yeah.
But with that said, I imagine there's a darker side to this as well.
Unfortunately, yes. Exploitation, poor working conditions, and legal vulnerabilities are all too common
Right.
for many migrant workers. Often they have very limited legal protection
Yeah.
and find themselves in very precarious situations.
That's terrible.
It is. And it reminds us that we can't just celebrate the economic benefits without acknowledging the human cost.
Yeah.
Protecting workers' rights,
Mm.
both domestically and through international agreements, becomes absolutely crucial.
Right.
And this is where the ethical dimension of this issue really comes to light.
Absolutely. But before we get into that.
Yeah. It's crucial to acknowledge that this whole outbound movement, it presents both challenges and opportunities for Bangladesh.
Yeah.
So the real question becomes, how can we create a more sustainable and equitable system?
Mm-hmm.
One that benefits both the individuals and the nation
Right.
as a whole. And our source material points to 3 key areas
Okay.
where positive change can really happen:
Okay.
education, migrant workers support, and economic growth.
Great. So let's start with education. What concrete steps can we take to kind of address these challenges we were talking about?
Well, just imagine a Bangladesh where students didn't feel like they had to leave to get a quality education.
Right.
That's the goal.
Yeah.
Right. And to achieve that, it involves, well, a multi-pronged approach.
Yeah.
But first and foremost, we got to invest in teacher training.
Yeah.
Paramount. Attracting and retaining those qualified educators, that's key to raising the overall standard of education.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And then there's the curricula. We got to modernize those curricula.
Update them.
Yeah, make sure that what's being taught is relevant to today's demands,
Yeah.
a globalized workforce.
So equip students with the skills they need to thrive, whether they stay in Bangladesh or go abroad.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And let's not forget about expanding access to higher education within Bangladesh itself.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, build more universities and technical colleges, especially in those underserved rural areas.
Okay.
Give those aspiring students opportunities closer to home.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Now, what about fostering connections with the international community? Could that play a role?
Absolutely. Think about collaborative programs with some of those big-name universities abroad. Bring in international faculty, do short-term teaching engagements, offer joint degree programs.
Oh, wow.
Maybe even set up satellite campuses of foreign universities within Bangladesh.
So expose students to those global perspectives and teaching methods without having them to uproot their whole lives.
Exactly. It's like we're bringing the world to Bangladesh instead of sending Bangladesh out to the world.
I love that. It's a win-win, right?
It is.
Students
Yeah.
get that exposure. Bangladesh benefits from the influx of knowledge and expertise.
Exactly.
Now let's talk about those who do choose to work abroad. How can we support them better and make sure their rights are protected?
Well, strengthening those bilateral agreements with the destination countries, that's key.
Okay.
These agreements, they should focus on establishing minimum wage standards, ensuring safe working conditions,
Right.
providing access to legal recourse, if exploitation does occur.
Like building a framework for safety?
Yeah, safeguarding the well-being of Bangladeshi workers when they're on foreign soil.
So it's really a matter of, governments working together to create a system that's fair.
It is.
Everyone.
And beyond the government agreements, we got to consider the role of NGOs and those advocacy groups,
Okay.
providing legal aid to those workers facing exploitation or distress.
Right.
That's critical. Imagine being in a foreign country, not knowing the laws, not knowing the customs,
Yeah.
and suddenly finding yourself super vulnerable.
Right.
Having access to legal counsel can be life-changing.
So it's providing that safety net so they know they have someone to turn to.
Exactly. And what about the workers who do decide to return to Bangladesh?
Yeah.
We can't forget about them. We need programs to help them reintegrate into that local economy. So things like skills development training, job placement assistance,
Yeah.
maybe even microloan initiatives to encourage them to become entrepreneurs.
Yeah. So recognize their contributions, value the skills they've gained abroad, and just help them transition back into society.
Exactly.
Smoothly.
Now let's move to the third piece of this puzzle, economic growth.
Okay.
So at the end of the day, to really address the root causes of this outbound movement,
You got to give them a reason to stay.
exactly, we need a more robust and diverse economy within Bangladesh itself.
So make it a place where people feel they can actually build a future
Yeah.
without having to go somewhere else. What would that look like?
Well, it's about moving beyond reliance on just those low-wage industries.
Right.
And we need to foster growth in sectors that offer higher-paying jobs that require skills.
Okay.
This could involve promoting innovation, especially in areas like technology and manufacturing, investing in infrastructure, making it attractive for foreign investment to come in, and just creating a business environment that is much friendlier to those entrepreneurs.
Right.
Yeah.
So this is a long-term strategy. It needs work from the government and the private sector.
Exactly. It's about creating a cycle of growth, right?
Right.
A thriving economy leads to more opportunities,
Right.
which in turn attracts and retains talent, which fuels even more economic expansion.
It's an ambitious vision, but it's a good one.
Oh, it is.
And it kind of highlights how interconnected all this is. Education, labor migration, remittances, economic growth, all tied together. And what strikes me is that addressing this outbound movement isn't just about finding solutions to problems.
It's bigger than that.
Yeah, it's about creating a more equitable and prosperous future for Bangladesh as a whole.
Absolutely. Yeah. It really is a complex situation with a lot of moving pieces, but ultimately it comes down to empowering individuals and fostering sustainable development.
Right.
And I think it's worth mentioning that our source materials,
Yeah.
while it is comprehensive,
Mm-hmm.
it's really only a small piece
Yeah.
of this very intricate phenomenon.
That's a great point. We've been focusing a lot on the economic and educational aspects, but there are other things to consider too, right? Like social and cultural factors that might influence this outbound movement.
Absolutely. Think about family ties, for example.
Oh, right.
Bangladesh has a strong tradition of extended families,
Mm-hmm.
and those connections can really impact those migration decisions.
Makes sense.
Someone might choose to work abroad,
Right.
not just for themselves, but to support siblings, parents,
Right.
even extended family back home.
So it's like a collective
Yeah,
effort. Everyone's kind of contributing to that family unit.
absolutely.
And I imagine there are some cultural elements at play here as well.
Of course, the desire to experience different cultures, broaden your horizons,
Right.
that can be a motivating factor. And let's not forget about the influence of media and communication globally. You see images of these affluent lifestyles in developed countries, and it creates a sense of aspiration.
Right. Especially for the younger generation.
Right.
That age-old thing, wanting something better.
Yeah, something more.
Yeah, something beyond your immediate surroundings.
Mhm.
And in our world, these days it's so interconnected. So those aspirations are more and more shaped by global influences.
Yeah.
And that makes me wonder about the psychological impact of this whole thing. Leaving your homeland,
Yeah,
leaving your culture. Does that come with a sense of loss?
it could.
Even a crisis of identity? These are all questions we haven't really touched on.
Right.
But it's interesting to think about.
It is. And I think it's important to bring up that this deep dive,
Yeah.
it's limited.
Yeah.
We've only really dipped our toes into this very complex issue.
Yeah, we've just scratched the surface.
There are so many layers, sociologically, psychologically,
Oh, for sure.
even philosophically, that could really help us understand this whole thing.
Yeah. It's a reminder that there's always more to learn, more perspectives to consider, more nuances to uncover.
Absolutely.
And that's what makes these deep dives so interesting. It's
Yeah.
not just about getting the information.
Mm-hmm.
It's about sparking that curiosity, challenging those assumptions we have,
Right.
and just expanding our understanding of the world around us.
I couldn't have said it better myself. And to our listener, we encourage you to continue this exploration.
Yeah.
Dive deeper into these sources we've talked about. Look for alternative viewpoints.
Right.
But I think most importantly, go out there and talk to people who have actually experienced this phenomenon firsthand.
Right.
Their stories, their insights, they're invaluable.
Absolutely.
And you won't get that from a research paper or a podcast script.
It's connecting those dots, bridging that gap between the theory and the lived experience.
Exactly.
And who knows,
Right.
maybe your own reflections and insights will actually help everyone understand this issue a little bit better.
That's right. Knowledge is at its most powerful when it's shared, when it's debated, and when it's constantly evolving. So keep diving deep, keep questioning, and keep the conversation going.
Well, that's all the time we have for today's deep dive.
Great topic.
We hope you found it insightful
Mm-hmm.
and thought-provoking. We certainly did.
You too.
Until next time, stay curious.